I also have the ability to focus on the private aspects of the cloud. And these are the types of services that shouldn't be necessarily publicly available. There are certain requirements, there are certain privacy components, and there are certain services that organizations are not yet ready to release. We're fine with that. From a technology point of view, I always say to a CIO, listen, if you're not comfortable with looking at the cloud or utilizing certain cloud services, don't do it. Plain and simple, don't do it. So what I think is important to realize is there are choices between how we approach the cloud. There's the public side, the private side, and then there's a combination. The combination is in the middle. We refer to actually as a hybrid-based model. The other thing to realize from an application point of view is when we look at the devices, we know that there are devices that will be introduced that we don't yet know about. The types of devices that are out there, the application capabilities, the operating systems, the wireless technologies that are involved in them, the uses of the devices. In fact, one of the things I frequently do, I have a very good friend that is a vice president at Apple. And whenever I see him and we're around some of the people from Apple, I always ask, I say, what's your new favorite application on the iPhone? And I ask because I'm always curious to see what people do with the iPhone because it has a beautiful app store. There are, I think, over 1 million applications. And I'm just curious from a technology point as to what people do. Some of them are digital rights management, protection of documents for secure things in business. Some are email related, again, from a security point of view. And some of them are things like a flashlight, right? And the first time I heard about that, I said, you're kidding me, right? You paid $1 or 99 cents for a flashlight application until we were somewhere and it was dark and he went, I got a flashlight. And I went, you know what? That was the best dollar spent in the past year. But I say that because if you look to companies like Apple to develop that flashlight application, or Microsoft or Google or any of the big technology organizations, you won't find it. It's ideas that come from people like you and how you think about technology and applying it, and that's why that apps marketplace or that apps model that Apple and Google and Microsoft and RIM and the other companies are focusing on are actually so important. The real challenge is how you move from device to device. And while I happen to be showing a slide that shows a Windows logo, our real goal is that we can provide the software that will run with any other software in a secure, standards, interoperable way. That's our focus. It's not about open source versus commercial software because there is room for both, or not only room, but there's a need for both of these types of environments to exist. And we have to have a standard way of interoperating. That's where the keys to the kingdom will come. Now, there are two last points that I want to make. One is around the concept of visualization. So one of the things we've been doing from a Microsoft point of view for many, many years, in fact, before Windows, and I programmed in DOS for many years. I wrote ASCII, or I programmed hex characters for memory locations on PCs using DOS commands. Well, the DOS interface actually provided a very low-level interface environment for me to interact with content, but it allowed me to do it. The browser-based environment, or sorry, the Windows-based environment and then the browser-based environment gave me leaps and bounds ability in how I could actually look at applications. And when you look at some examples of what some of these applications tend to look like, you look at things like digital imaging systems that can actually show me what's going on within a human body while the person is actually alive. And I say that because for many years we've been able to look inside somebody's body. They just couldn't be alive when we did it. The new systems can do it. In fact, some of the new systems allow it to happen when you're at the airport, right? And the discussion of data privacy and data protection. So some people are willing to allow their privacy to have a different approach to privacy for security purposes as long as they trust that the data is being protected in the appropriate manner. So there are various ways that these are being used. The other point that I want to talk about is the concept of the user interface and the evolution of the user interface. Because this is what we've seen and we've heard very loudly and very clearly from everybody that's in the Microsoft community. Now, I always get a kick out of mentioning these numbers, although the vice presidents and the presidents at Microsoft don't particularly don't like to hear about these numbers. But there are a large number of people around the world that are using our products in a licensed way. There are about, I believe the number is somewhere around 425 million licensed versions of Windows. I might be a little bit up or down on the number. But it's a large number of people that are legally licensed. We also know that there are 1.2 billion PCs out there that run Windows. So we have an opportunity to work with the users so that they understand the value of commercial software, and that the investment in a commercial piece of software is actually to their advantage because we use those dollars to reinvest back into our research and development organizations. In fact, last year alone, we spent just about $9.5 billion US on research and development. Now, part of the evolution of that research and development is coming out. It's actually coming to fruition the first week of November. We have a new product that's actually being shipped, and it's something called Microsoft Connect. And the goal of Microsoft Connect is to allow you to interact with content in ways that you didn't in the past because you've told us you want to. The way this whole process works is instead of the traditional mouse and keyboard, you actually now have the ability to use your voice or use gestures to interact. Now, the initial launch of the product itself, and in fact, if anybody's not seen it, I encourage you to go to Microsoft.com and search on Connect. It's K-I-N-E-C-T. Watch some of the videos, or go to YouTube, and watch some of the videos, and you'll get an idea of how the device actually works. The most important technology breakthrough that we've seen, though, is gesture control. And the reason is the Connect device will look at your body, and in a typical human, what it does is it looks at it identifies about 19 different flex points in your body. They're joints. It looks at your shoulders, it looks at your elbows, it looks at your hips, your wrists, your hands, your knees, your ankles, your head, so the top of your head and your neck. It looks at different things. And the reason is, we want you to be able to interact with content based upon the way you're interacting in front of this particular device. Now, we're launching it in the entertainment space because it makes sense to do that. So we're attaching it into the Xbox lineup as an add-on for Xbox. Again, the first week of November, it goes live. But we're also talking with education partners that develop applications for early childhood education. In fact, one of the first applications that we're pursuing in a conversation, so that it's not something that you'll see on the commercial market for some time, but we're having conversations with partners that focus on fine motor skill development and occupational therapy. Because if we can build an application that can see how a child is moving their hand or holding a pencil or holding a cup or not able to hold a cup, we can then work with the massive library of therapy options to figure out which exercises are appropriate to help those children very early on. And we don't need to build a special room or a special facility to do it. They can do it in the comfort of their own home, and they can have a video chat with their healthcare provider through the same environment, because it does video conferencing, to actually coach that person through the process. It allows scale, it allows the technology to be adopted in a massive capability. So there are a lot of opportunities in how we're going about this process. Again, I mentioned the concept of Connect out there. In fact, the screen on the far right actually shows one of the games that will come with Connect. It's actually something called Connect Adventures. And the reason that I always point out the game that will go with this device is we have so many people that will be looking at a technology that is not familiar to them that we have to give people a way. We have to educate people on how the technology can be used. In fact, I look back to when Windows was first released. There were 2 entertainment applications that were delivered with Windows. And I'm sure most of you are thinking back. Some of you are going, wait, Windows? There's always been Windows. But when Windows first shipped, there were 2 games that shipped. There was Solitaire and there was Minesweeper. We very specifically shipped those 2 games, much to the dismay of many companies. They didn't like seeing people play Solitaire. But we shipped them because many people that were using Windows had never used a mouse before. And what does Solitaire enable you to do? Drag and drop. What does Minesweeper allow you to do? Right mouse click. So we were teaching people about the mouse buttons and how the mouse could work. So we use the entertainment value that consumers look for in order to educate them in how it works. Now, I have a 3-year-old daughter who can use a mouse probably better than my parents can. In fact, my 3-year-old, not kidding at all, my 3-year-old daughter knows how to go to the computer, knows the Skype logo, double clicks on it, can open a Skype window. Now, I said, listen, we have something called Windows Live Messenger. I need you to learn about that. And she said, Daddy, Skype is easier to say. So we have different technologies in our house. I'm the IT support person. I allow it to happen. So it's just some examples of what the interface experiences look like with different examples. The upper left is actually some of the games that will be coming out with Connect. And I encourage everybody, whether you're into gaming or not, at least take a look at what this new environment looks like. Watch it online, take a look, because the term we use is we're moving from the GUI, the graphical user interface, to the NUI, which is the natural user interface. So again, some different examples of how some of these technologies are ultimately being used in health, education, government, and obviously in the entertainment space. So as I close, one of the things that I think is important to understand is as we talk about technology and how technology has evolved over time, we need to keep in mind that there is a conversation change that is occurring. And when we talk about technology, it's not just, hey, what's the new cool device? What's the new way that we interact with people? What's the new thing that we should be focused on? It's very much around what is the overall opportunity that we're focused on, and then what are the requirements that need to be in place for us to support them? Because there are challenges that go along with these opportunities, and I use the terms of interoperability and security and privacy over and over and over again, because those are the legal ramifications and the personal ramifications that tend to get pushed aside if we're not focused on them. We also need to make sure that as we understand those responsibilities, we implement them as responsible citizens and responsible organizations. So what I would like everybody to do as you leave the conference this evening and as you look forward to the next couple of days, I want you to be thinking very carefully about the concept of where we are or where we'll be tomorrow, where we'll be next week, where we'll be down the road. And I encourage you to challenge yourself in how you look at technology. And one, take advantage of public forums. The beauty of the social networking environment is anybody can post anything about anything and gain input. In fact, one of the things I find interesting, so I use Facebook all the time as a way to gain input. And so as I'm traveling from Seattle, I post out to Facebook into my friends list. I say, I'm going to be in Tijuana for 2 days. Does anybody have recommendations for a good place to go? Now, most of the responses had the word tequila in them somewhere, which I think is great. But I had a couple of people come back with some excellent restaurant recommendations, and I've taken full advantage of them on this trip, and I'm going to make sure I take advantage of the rest on the next trip. But I encourage you to challenge yourself in how you think about these things and how you move forward. Now, with that said, I appreciate the time today. I believe that we're going to set some time aside for a couple of questions. And so let me find out how we're going to do the questions. I'm not quite sure if there are microphones that are actually out in the audience. Yep. Okay, so there are microphones. So why don't we go this? Why don't we go ahead and take some questions?
Okay. Hello.
Yes.
My name is Salvador. I personally believe that the IT costs are extremely impacting the performance of the companies, not only in the United States, but also in Mexico lately. And it's not only the licensing issue, but also the hardware issue, the networking, the PBX, backing up, circuits. Has Microsoft think about all this impact in the future for the companies that believe that keeping on the state-of-the-art technology is going to make them more